is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Hey Hoopheads, the basketball season is here, and so are big savings from our friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. From now until November 29th, you can get an exclusive $3,500 off the Dr. Dish CT Plus. In addition, take advantage of Dr. Dish's schools-only buy now, pay later payment plans for even more savings. Simply put half down and shipping, and then have 12 months of zero interest to pay the rest. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com/financing. You can also follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, this is Munch Williams from Pro Scholar Athletics and the author of Our PSA. And you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its play bank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Linsing here with my co-host Jason Sunkle tonight. And it is time for Triple Double, number 14. Rob Brost, Bolingbrook High School in Bolingbrook, Illinois. Rob, welcome back in. Jay, welcome in.
That great to be back. I'm excited on two fronts. The main one is that your Cavs are dominating right now, and that's the main one. And then obviously number two, we've started practice, and so off we go here with the season. So let's go.
Season is here. The NBA season is here. Cavs 13-0 as we speak tonight, as we're recording. Big game with the Boston Celtics next Tuesday, which probably will be right before we release this episode. So who knows what will happen. But at this point, very excited about the Cavs season, and also very excited that the basketball season is here. You guys are going to be up and playing. Jason's teams that he's coaching are playing. My kids are ready to get started.
I played 3 games. I'm 2-1, Rob. 2-1.
Yeah, well, that's a good start.
And my girls, after they won the first game, I told Mike this story off the air. The girl comes up to me and goes, and I coached 7th grade. We haven't won a game since 5th grade. So I was like, I can end the season now. I've succeeded. I've exceeded their expectations after losing every game last season. So we're off to a good start. So
awesome. Coach of the Year, the Coach of the Year trophy is headed your way very soon.
No,
Jay.
It's not.
Good work. All right, so we are going to talk 3 topics again tonight. And the first topic that we're going to throw at Rob is baseline out of bounds and sideline out of bounds. Just talking about philosophy. First of all, what are you trying to accomplish with each of those special situations? And then how do you go about practicing sideline out of bounds, baseline out of bounds? How do you incorporate them into practice? What are you looking to do when you're practicing those to make sure that they're crisp and you can execute them when you get to games?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. Just today, one of my assistants counted up, and this is complete coincidence, counted that we had over 200 inbounds unders that we defended against last year. So it averaged out to about 6.5 times a game we were defending inbounds under. So I would say about that average would be 6.5 times we had an inbounds under, as well. So, we try to incorporate it into practice in our normal flow of practice. So for example, when we're practicing these, if we're doing 3 possessions or something like that, where we're in the full court, if we have a dead ball situation and it's inbounds under, we'll just call one where the guys don't even know that it's coming, think that it's coming, and then we'll just do it in practice as part of our natural flow, I guess you would say. Obviously, it's a separate point of practice when we're first introducing inbounds unders, both offensively and defensively. But once we get them in, we like to practice them in the normal flow of our scrimmage sets or our, normal transition work, all of those things. So it's not like we set aside 20 minutes to just practice inbounds unders. We like it to be kind of spontaneous, and so the kids really don't know that it's coming, and we just throw it in there, so to speak, during our normal practice flow. Obviously, there'll be practice segments during, especially the beginning part of the year off our master practice plan, where we go over inbounds under, both offensively and defensively. And, I try to have very few of those in our first game. It sounds weird, but we only have one or two in for probably our first set of games when we go play here in 2 weeks. But then as the season progresses, we will add inbounds unders, probably more than sideline out of bounds, even, because on the inbounds unders, we like to try to score. Obviously, we're sideline, we're not necessarily trying to score per se, but set up an action, I guess you would say, to score. So it's not like we're not trying to score, but it's more of a setup situation where we don't want to turn the ball over. And so, the converse of that, defensively, we're trying to prevent scores, when we're on the defensive end on out of bounds unders. And so when you have an average of 6.5 inbounds under situations per game, that's an ability for, about 20 points per game right there is up for grabs. And so you don't want to be weak in those areas, but on the other hand, it's not something that overwhelms our practice or takes up a huge amount of time as well.
How do you prevent your players from playing the play defensively when your offensive team is running an out of bounds play that obviously the defensive team knows what that play is and knows what's coming? How do you handle that situation?
Well, I think we do the best we can to make it as game-like as possible. And it's just like any situation you have in practice, right? Your team knows really what's coming because you've practiced that, whether that's offense, defense, or whatever it is. So we just try to make it as game-like as possible and as random as possible. And so, there's been times where we're not even scrimmaging and I'll say, hey, let's do, out of bounds under 3, and then we just run to the other end of the floor and then we do it. And then, how I have it set up is we have one of my assistants is kind of our offensive coordinator, and one of our assistants, another assistant, is the defensive coordinator. And so their jobs are to have those things prepared and ready and kind of organized, I guess you would say, and ready to go. And then obviously, once we get into the season, we like it, like I said, to be part of the flow of our normal practice. And so, obviously, we're practicing some of it 5-on-0 and against dummy D at the beginning, just to get the pattern, routine, etc. And then obviously we'll go live with it as we move throughout the year.
All right, let's look at it from the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't know what types of plays your opponents are necessarily going to be running. As you scout them, you get an idea of, hey, they like to do this, or this is the actions, or these may be counters that they have. So what's the general philosophy with your team in terms of defensively when you're guarding a baseline out of bounds play? What are some of the principles that you teach your team to be able to prevent the other team from scoring out of that situation?
the first thing we want to do is prevent a lane touch on the first pass, and make sure that the first pass is away from the basket. And then we feel like if we can accomplish that, then we can guard just about any action, right? And so we play off of concept on out of bounds under as well, especially defensively. Most out of bounds under start off a box set or a stack set or a 4-low set. So we know how we're going to defend those general sets before we even go into a game. And then obviously once we're playing a team and we know what their inbounds under plays are, then it becomes a little bit easier. But in general, our first rule is we don't want the first pass to be in the lane of any sort. We want the pass to be outside the lane. And then we feel like once we've done that, then we're good, right? Because we can defend any action off of our principles defensively once the ball gets in. So we do a couple different things out of bounds under. We kind of start in like a zone situation, but as soon as the ball gets in, then it's man. And so we're switching everything when it first comes in. And then once it gets in, we're straight man. So we like to give a different look than what we're actually in, if that makes sense. And then really protect the basket and protect the lane. And then obviously get out to 3-point shooter. So our philosophy inbounds under is very similar to our half court defensive philosophy, that we want to protect the rim and protect the lane area, number one, and then prevent catch and shoot threes, number two, and make guys put it on the floor and hopefully force them into a mid-range type of shot or something of that nature. So it's a delicate balance between using our principles and then defending the team that we're playing off of the scout, right? So obviously everybody's got a counter and then a counter to the counter and all of that stuff. So that's why the principles are so important.
You tell the defender on the ball defensively, whether you're in a man or a zone look going back to man, how do you like to defend the guy who's actually the inbounder? How do you defend the inbounder?
Yeah, well, we usually put our biggest guy on the inbounder, and then we're switching everything once the ball gets in. So, usually the best shooter or the best passer is passing it inbound. One of those two things is happening, or the best big. And if it's the best big, we already got that covered because our best big is in. So we want to make it difficult for the ball to be inbounded, especially going towards the basket. That's the first, concept. And then we're switching, anything because we'll know if it's a shooter that's standing out of bounds or if it's their big, because we obviously can see and we've scouted. So, our hope is that our guys will communicate and understand, what they're running, and typically they'll call out the play and we'll know what it is, just like they'll know our plays when we call ours out because they've scouted us as well. So this isn't a one-way thing. It's not like I'm outsmarting the other guy. He knows our plays just like we know theirs. And so, that goes into the bigger philosophy and this goes even into timeouts and all that. I don't know how many times I go into a timeout and they're like, what did you say in that time? I said, make a play. That's what I said. Just make a play, because we know what they're doing. They know what we're doing. So we need to do what we do better than what they do. And so that's the case, I think, a lot of times with out of bounds unders as well.
More threes or more layups are you looking for offensively, or you're just really trying to take exactly what the defense gives you? What do you find historically for your teams? Do you get more threes off inbounds, or do you get more layups?
I think we like to put pressure on the rim. So again, our general offensive philosophy is the same with out of bounds unders when we have it on offense, right? And so, we have a couple guys this year, and we had a few last year that can really shoot the three. But the other teams know that they can shoot the three as well. So a lot of times it's counter to what you would think, when we put a shooter out of bounds and we're running him off of a single double or something like that off of a out of bounds under. But then a lot of times those are counters to get our big guy a touch. Or like a dribble handoff situation after we get it inbounds where we're attacking the rim. And so, what we do offensively and defensively are just opposite of one another, trying to stop the things that we like to do on offense and then trying to do the things that we like to do on offense, if that makes sense. It sounds simplistic, and it is, but it gets a lot more complicated, obviously, when you're playing another team.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you start talking about, right, making counters, and that goes for offensively and defensively, you're just reading the situation, as you said.
Yeah.
Make a play, you give players a general principle of, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish. We know when we're on defense, we're switching everything, and boom, now we're taking stuff away. And with the scouting and what you know is coming, then you're able to not allow your opponent to get easy baskets. I mean, I think it's key to be able, if you can pick up, 2 or 3 easy baskets on out of bounds plays and prevent your opponent from getting those. I mean, that's a crucial battle. Like you said, there's 20 points at stake there, that if you can win that battle by 4, 6, 8 points every game, I mean, that's a huge advantage that any team can have, which is kind of why I wanted to talk about that particular topic.
We do, one of my assistants is kind of a mastermind of watching film. So he clipped every out of bounds under that we had on defense from last season. He's watched it and he's analyzed it and what we need to do and all of these things. And, I'm glad he's doing that, because he's a lot smarter than me and maybe has more time than me. But he's kind of the mastermind of, how we're going to do the out of bounds unders. And I really appreciate it. Like this August, I got 70 clips on Huddle. Like, here's our first 70 out of bounds under defenses for the season. I don't really care. So, now he's going to hear this and be like, oh, I did all that work. So anyways, but some of that is off season work to get tendencies and to just understand if you're doing a good job, I guess you would say, on defending those things. And so again, some of that comes back to the program philosophy and all of those things as well.
So, yeah, Rod, I'm going to ask one question, Rod, about baselines out of bounds. Do you have a story of a great baselines out of bounds play that you've drawn up because you needed something? Do you have something? I know that's...
Well, I can tell you where I jinxed one. I drew up out of bounds under. We were in the super sectional final. So this is to go downstate. And we were already in the first overtime. And so we're up there's 3 seconds left on the clock. And we had out of bounds under, and I called timeout, of course. And I draw up something that we didn't have in. And I handed the clipboard to the manager after I was done. And I said, our manager's name at the time was Charles. And I said, Charles, we're about to win the super sectional right now. And so we got it in bounds. And then our kid just airmailed the pass to our post right out of bounds. So we went to a second overtime instead of I came away as the hero. So I jinxed it. We ended up winning the game, but we did not win it on the out of bounds under that I called. So
the pass would have gotten there. Would have you won the game?
I think we would have. We had a post guy that was wide open. I mean, it was open, but the kid just kind of threw it over his head, I guess you would say. And I'll be nice about it. Because as soon as I saw the play develop, I literally turned around and I started to shake our guys like, here we go. And then the ball just went right out of bounds.
No. It's not the Steph Curry. It's the Swaggy P when he turned around and put his arms up.
That's right.
And there you go.
So I jinxed it more than I mean, it was a great play call, and I'm never going to throw our players under the bus because we ended up winning the game. But so that was the exact opposite of what you're asking for.
Well, it's a memorable one though. So that's
yeah, no question. So, but it worked out okay because then we went into another overtime. We ended up winning, so it worked out all right.
All's well that ends well. All right, topic number 2, rankings, player rankings, team rankings. I know that for most coaches, the standard answer is, I don't deal in player rankings, team rankings. We don't really talk about them. But the reality is that kids, parents, communities love rankings. They love reading player rankings. They look at websites. They love reading team rankings. So it's something that as a coach, even though you may not necessarily want to acknowledge / deal with those things, they are things that your players, your community, your parents are seeing, are talking about, are reading. So how do you go about having conversations with players, with your team, when rankings are brought to you in whatever way, shape, or form they end up coming to you?
Well, I think there are two parts of this: individual rankings, right, and then team rankings. So let's cover them kind of separately. The individual rankings. This is my 17th year at Bolingbrook High School. I have never one time talked to a kid about what he's ranked or what, he should be ranked or if he's ranked, etc. Now, I will say it's a little different now because one of my players lives in the same house as me. And he'll bring to me, like, I don't read the individual rankings hardly ever. Sometimes I'll read the national ones before I go to USA basketball stuff just to see just because I'm curious. But now, since my son is literally involved in the rankings, he'll come to me and be like, "Dad, did you see this? I'm such and such a number, or I'm such and such a number, or I'm way better than such and such and such and such, and he's 2 spots ahead of me." And so I can tell you just from my house, and I think my son is pretty level-headed and pretty realistic on. They look at it. And I understand that more now because I have a player living with me, and I understand how it affects, the thought process or psyche, I guess you would say. So I know it matters, but individually, I haven't looked at that in years, and I still don't look even after Trey says, "Well, look at this. So-and-so is 3, not even talking about himself. Can you believe that?" Whatever. So I try not to look at the individual ones really at all. But the team ones are a whole different story, which we can get to after unless you have follow-ups with the individual thing.
No, I mean, I think the individual thing, right? The only way that you as a coach would ever have that discussion would be if a player brought it to you and said, "Hey, what about this?" And your answer, I assume, would be the same for any player on your team that it is for Trey of, "Hey, those rankings are whatever, arbitrary, and who knows who the person is that's coming up with those rankings,
no question.
And who knows who has watched those rankings and whatever." So I got a funny story for you, Rob. So my son's team played against the University of Akron. So Division III playing against a Division I team. This was last Friday. And one of the kids who plays for the University of Akron, he's a transfer. I think he was at West Virginia before, but he came to my basketball camp when he was in 2nd grade. And his father, at some point after the basketball camp, like one day after camp, came up to me and he said, "I just want you to know that my son is the number 1 ranked 2nd grader in the country." And I remember looking at him and just,
I was at
my
this
jaw.
camp. I was at this camp with you. I remember this. Okay.
Do you remember this story?
Oh,
you
yeah.
remember this story?
Yeah.
So I just remember looking at the father and saying, "Oh, I was so shocked and taken aback that I almost couldn't react to it." And I remember saying to him, "Well, who's doing that ranking?" And then him saying, giving me some answer, and then me just kind of walking away and shaking my head going, "Oh my goodness, like this is unbelievable." Now this kid's a very good player. He actually, and I hadn't seen him play probably since he was in 2nd grade, but he's a very nice player, really unselfish and very good job. I don't think he's still the number 1 ranked player in his class, but a very good player. But just when I think of rankings,
he really fell off in
that's
3rd
wrong,
grade. He really fell off in 3rd grade.
Everything that's wrong with rankings was summed up in that story that this father was telling me, that he was the number 1 ranked 2nd grader in the country. So
it's wild. I've heard of people in our area, Chicagoland area, and I'm sure it's the same, like they will write about / rank kids whose either parents or somebody pay them to write.
Absolutely.
And rank. So some of this it's so far off you can't even trust it. And I know there's some really good ones too, and that do it right, and that I trust. And obviously I'm not going to name names or do anything like that, but it's crazy how many people now are ranking kids and how many people feel like they are, professional enough or have seen enough basketball to rank kids. I don't understand it. It seems like every year there's more people doing it and more people think that they're qualified to do it. And I'll just leave it at that, I guess.
That is so true. I mean, I can sort of see the intrigue in ranking high school players. I can understand that there's a market for that, in that there are a lot of people who are interested in high school basketball, both players, their parents, people who are just fans of high school basketball. I can see where there is a demand for that. What I can't for the life of me see is anything below that. And again, to your point, whether people are paying for their rankings or whatever it may be, there's no way that any rational person can look and see a 200 player list put out by writer X and think that that writer has in any way, shape, or form seen all 200 of those kids play basketball. So I guess the bottom line for anyone who's out there listening who's not a coach, because I think all coaches already probably understand this, but if you're a player or you're a parent, please take all rankings of individuals with a grain of salt and do not let that impact you in any way, shape, or form in terms of what you are doing on a basketball court. So let's leave that there and go to the team rankings, because obviously that's something more that a lot of people in your community may see and may find to be interesting or want to talk about it. So how do you handle team rankings and how that may affect inside your locker room, what you do, and then the people who are, again, attached to your program but aren't in your locker room?
Yep, it's interesting. Let me come at this with a two-pronged approach as well. How I normally do it or talk about it, and then what's happening to my team right now as we're recording. And it's kind of unique that you bring this up at this time. But in general, I try not to talk about it at all. I never talk about, hey guys, we're going to win 25 games this year, or the goal is to win X number of games, or we have to win conference this year. And that goes along with the ranking thing, right? We don't talk about where we're ranked. We don't say, hey, we're number 3, they're number 4, so we should be better. We don't do any of that. Now, I might say as a motivational thing, when we're playing an opponent, hey, somebody thinks these guys are the number 1 team in the state. Are you serious? Like, we can beat these dudes. And so, I might use it, every now and then in a line like I just used, something like that. Like, this is a top 10 team. If this is a top 10 team, let's show them what we are, something like that. And so, but I don't harp on it. I don't bring it up over and over. I don't ever say, hey guys, we're ranked X or we're ranked this. We've had, I think it was 2017, we had a stretch of 11 straight weeks. And I know you're like, well, if you don't check, how do you know? We were ranked number 1 for 11 straight weeks. Somebody told me at the end of the season. And so, obviously that's nice for your program, especially when you're in Illinois and in the biggest class. I mean, it's great for your kids. It's great for the community. It's great for the program. It doesn't really mean anything to really anybody at the end of the day. And so, I will say now, with all the scrutiny that high school basketball gets in the Chicagoland area and all the attention that it gets, people get really juiced up about the rankings and, I can't believe these guys are this or that. So I try to stay out of all of that talk as best I can, especially with our team, because the work is the work, right? Whether you're ranked number 3 or 103, the work that you have to do as a team is the same. It's just like after a game, if we win by 1 or we lose by 1, the things we have to work on are exactly the same, whether we won or lost. So the work is the work. And so that's irregardless of ranking or anything like that. So I say that kind of in general. Now, fast forward to where I'm sitting right now and where my team is right now. We're in the preseason. Obviously, we've started practice, and I find out just today, actually, or yesterday, that we're going to be the preseason number one team in the state, in the biggest class. So,
come on, you're so excited, Rob. You're so excited.
Yeah. I don't want to say I dislike it, because I don't want people to think that I don't want the expectation. But again, the work is the work, right? And so I'm mostly concerned about what my kids are and what my players are hearing outside of me, right? Like things like, oh, this is your year, or win state or bust, stuff like that, which is, I think, absolutely ridiculous to say to teenage kids, and really kids of any age, or even pro players. That's not how it works. This is your year, or win it or bust, or anything like that is, to me, counterproductive. I try to be as humble as I can, not worrying about all of that type of thing, but it comes into play, right? You have to deal with it because it's part of the culture of basketball, especially in the Chicagoland area. And I'm sure it's the same in Cleveland or any big metro area where high school basketball is good. And so we've been, I would say, I say this in all humbleness, an elite program for the last 10 or so years. And, we've never been ranked number one in the preseason, but that's going to happen. And it's about to happen. And so we're trying to embrace it, not put much stock in it, and really try to, our kids don't even know about it. So like I practiced today knowing it, but they don't know it. But they're going to know it on Monday when the photo shoot comes and the spread comes in the paper 2 days later, and like, what are these guys doing here? So, they're going to figure it out in a pretty big hurry. And then all of our people, I guess you would say, are going to be fired up. Like, I told you this is, man, everyone thinks we're going to be, this, that, or the third. So, we obviously have a nice group as a talented group, but I could name, this is what I told the guys that do the ranking. I could name 10 teams that could beat us today, like right now. And I'm pretty confident that I could do that. Now, obviously, I think we could beat some of them as well, but they could beat us without issue. And so, it's a fine line between embracing what comes with it and giving it too much of your time, if that makes sense. So we want to embrace the expectation, but the work is the work, right? Just like I said, we have work to do. And if we don't do the work, that's the biggest part. And the fact of the matter is nobody, and I mean nobody, remembers who's ranked number one at the end of the season. I mean, they don't remember the preseason number one pick at the end of the season. Nobody cares. And so a month from now, no one will care.
Just look at the NCAA football, right? I mean, the preseason ranks, and the NCAA basketball, the preseason ranks. I mean, especially this year with the football. I mean,
no doubt.
I don't remember. Wasn't Georgia was number one, and now they're like not even in the playoff. So it's like crazy. So
hopefully we're not Georgia, but we'll see. We'll see. So
I wasn't trying to make you feel that I was speaking that, Rob.
It's okay. It's okay. It's quite all right. We have our expectations of ourselves remain the same no matter what it says beside our school name in the newspaper. And so, there's a certain level of expectation in our program, regardless of what we're ranked. I thought we would probably be in the top 5-ish, or maybe 4 to 8, because there's so many good teams, just like in Cleveland. There's so many good teams, right? And there's, I think, 8 or 9 teams that could make a legit argument for being ranked number one, like right now, within the preseason ranking. So at any rate, I try not to put a lot of stock in it and try to just do the work that's required for us to be a good team and work on the things that we need to work on, and then not get worried about all of the things that come with that.
In other words, you want to make it so it's not a burden. The
Right.
expectation of success is already there. It's just not something that you want to be added to the load that your individual players and team have to carry around. So it's nice to have the recognition, the expectation of success is already there, but we don't want it to become, oh my God, we have to live up to the number one ranking. Oh my God, if we don't win state, it is a disappointing season.
Yeah.
Those are the situations that you're trying to avoid.
Exactly. And nothing could be further from the truth in statements like that, right? Having done this for a long time and having played, in the Final Four several times and played for the state, you have to get a little bit lucky when to make a run like that and to do that. The thing I tell, especially my assistants and sometimes my closer friends, it's great to be in the conversation, right? It's great to be relevant in that. But if that's what you're concerned about, then you got it all wrong. But you put it exactly correct, Mike, when you said, I don't want it to be a burden. I don't want anybody thinking about that. That's on our team. And certainly there's going to be a lot of hoopla outside of our team and all that. We've already got people that want to do a little documentary on our team. And then we have guys that want to just follow us. Could we ride the bus? Like, just come on. Like, no, we're not doing any of that. Well, can I have
Last Dance with Rob Brost?
Yes. Like, can we have a photographer right outside the bus and just take some pictures as you're walking off? Like, really? What are we doing? Like, we're a high school basketball team. We're not going to do all that. Obviously, we'll do what I think is best for our kids. And some of it does promote the program and promotes our kids, which is okay. And you have to do some of that in the age that we're in. I get that. But we are not the Los Angeles Lakers or the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're not
going to get pictures of the pregame fits of them walking into the arena.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Who has the best fit? And, can I interview you before and after every game? Like, really? Like, come on. Like, yeah, I'm a podunk high school coach here, and we're not going to do all of that. So anyway,
that sounds like more of a burden than it sounds like fun. So keep it on the fun side, put the burden away, and enjoy your season. That's really what it's all about. So
no doubt.
Ignore the rankings as much as is humanly possible. Hey coaches, we know you're invested in the next generation of athletes, so why not give them the star treatment this season with Game Changer, a free app that provides you with the tools to help your players improve. Review game film, game stats, and cumulative season statistics with your team to keep players motivated all season long. Live stream your games for free and enjoy automatic highlight clips. Download Game Changer now on iOS or Android. Game Changer equips your team with the tools they need to stay engaged. Download it today and make this season one for the books. Game Changer. Stream, score, connect. Learn more at gc.com/hoopheads. That's gc.com/hoopheads. All right, the last topic tonight is game day routine for you as a coach. How much of what you do each day is, for lack of a better word, scripted, that you like to have things go the same way each game day, or are you more free-flowing? Just tell me what a game day looks like for you. Let's assume it's a day when you have school.
Yep. I try as best I can not to think about games during the school day, right? Now, obviously that's impossible to do, but I try as best I can to just make it like any other day, during the school day, right? My routine and what I like to do happens more after school's over. Then I start kind of doing, I try to relax. I'm old now, so I try to take a nap, especially if we have a home game. So I try to come home from school right away and take a nap. But then the routine actually starts once I get back to school or once we get to the arena or to the school that we're playing, right? That's when I really
Starts with picking out your outfit for the day. So you get the picture for the best fit.
No. So it doesn't. So I try to, I know some coaches have this whole routine. They wake up and they do, I don't, none of that. If I can take a nap after school, that's great. If not, but the routine starts once I get back to school, if we have a home game or we arrive at the arena or school that we're playing. Then I like to have, certain things a certain way. We're going to warm up at a certain time. I'm going to have the board at a certain time. I always go over the same things at the end on the board, and it's always the exact same at the end. The things we talk about before we take the floor are exactly the same. Not the specifics of the game, but what we cover at the end of that talk is exactly the same every single time. And then you get into the routine of, where you sit, all of those things. And I don't want to get into all of that. So I'm not a huge routine guy until we get to wherever we're playing. If we're at home, I like to write the board up before the guys even go in there. So it's prepared. So when they get in there, it's already up. They can kind of peruse it if they want or ignore it if they want. And then, I'll go in with 5 minutes to go in the game prior to us or the sophomore game or the JV game, whatever you want to call it. We'll go over it and the end will be exactly the same. And then we come out the same. So the routine really doesn't start until we get to the place that we're playing, if that makes sense. So this is going to kind of be a boring answer. I'm not one of those guys that gets up and then reads over the scouting report and then puts it down. And then second period, I read it over again. And then I try not to worry about. I think a lot of that stuff doesn't matter. And I know there's coaches like, are you serious? That doesn't matter. Well, this is just one humble opinion from a 50-year-old old duffer coach that I don't think all that stuff really matters.
You have a superstition?
I mean, the nap is the best thing the closest thing I can come with a superstition. When I first started, I was kind of like one of those guys that I just described. In the morning, I would do this, and then I got to have a Dr. Pepper at lunch, and then, I got to have Chick-fil-A, right after school. Now I don't worry about any of that. I just try to, whatever happens, and then we'll try to be as prepared as we can for the game because, the outcomes are already decided. We're just going to do the best we can to have a say in it, right? And so once you realize that as a coach, I think it gives you better perspective. And, I get this, well, that's easy for you to say when you've won as much as you've won, but it just, I don't know, it makes me feel better about things to just go about my day and, try to be a good human during the day and try to be nice to people. Like people asked me on Monday, 2 days ago, well, how do you feel? It's first practice. Well, I mean, right now, it's just like every other day. When 2:45 hits, then I'll get to practice and then I'll start practice. So obviously I'm excited about the season. I'm excited about our players. I'm excited about, all the things that come along with it. But the work is the work, like we talk about. And so it always comes back to that.
Have you ever had a player that's had a superstition that you're aware of?
Well, I've had some bizarre requests from players. This was mostly when I first started, because now we're so entrenched in routine of what we do that even the players now, they don't want to okay, 5 minutes to go is this. And then, so now it's kind of entrenched. But a couple guys, when I first started, one kid said to me that he does better if he's just by himself before the games and that he doesn't talk to anyone. So he literally asked me, could he just be by himself not in our locker room, but in a different place, and then just meet up with us as we took the floor. And this was like 3 or 4 games into the season. And then he said, well, I'm not playing very well, and I think it's because of what I just told you. And I was like, that's ridiculous. You're going to have to, do what we do and go over the pregame and do all that stuff. So we've had players that I think that affects how they play, and maybe it does. But that's when I was a lot younger, and now we're pretty set in how we prepare and what we do.
Makes sense. I mean, I think, again, you have to ultimately, in whatever you're doing, right? Whether you're a player, whether you're a coach, whether it's your job, whatever, you have to do what ultimately makes you feel the most comfortable and the most prepared to do what it is that you're about to do. And for some people, that's very rigid and I have to do X, Y, and Z. And for other people, that can be a little bit more fluid. And even though yours may be a little bit more fluid, there's still some things, right? It's still more for you. I feel like it's a routine of this is just what we do as a group, as a coaching staff, as opposed to this is a superstition where if the team comes in the locker room at 4 minutes and 58 seconds instead of 5 minutes, Rob is not over in the corner in a pool of sweat going, oh my God, what are we going to do? It's the whole game has been lost because we're 2 seconds off of our superstitious things that we need to do. So again, I think it's all, to me, it just comes down to what gets you in the right frame of mind to be able to do what it is that you're going to do. And I think by you as the coach doing that for yourself and for your team, you've now put everyone else at ease well, and put them in the best frame of mind to be able to come out and be prepared. And I think that's what it really comes down to, is if you as the coach are now calm, you are collected, you are ready to go. Just like during a game when your team looks over at you on the sideline and sees how you're behaving. It's the same thing, I think, in the pregame, right? That when you exude an air of calm, the same thing is going to happen for your team. And that, to me, I think is the bottom line.
There's no doubt at all. 2 years ago, I got a new athletic director, and it was like our second game, and we got down like 19-8. I did not call a timeout. I was totally calm, and we ended up winning the game. It was against a really good team, but we ended up winning. And after the game, he came up to me, you didn't take it. You weren't yelling. You stayed completely calm. And he was like, I was a little shocked by that. Well, I mean, obviously you'd seen me coach before, so that shouldn't be a total, new thing. But anyways, to your point, we know, and I know we're going to play bad at certain stretches, and especially against a good team like we were playing. I knew there was a possibility that would happen, and I knew there was a possibility that would keep happening in that particular game. Luckily, it didn't. But I think if you can, just kind of be ready, so to speak, for anything, and not get rattled by everything, I think it helps the players, and I think it helps, everybody, because it's okay. And it all circles back to the philosophy and what is important to you as a coach. And, it goes back to the thing that we talk about all the time, and it keeps coming up on these. This is our 14th one, but like I tell our guys all the time, if your relationship with me is dependent on if you play, how well you play, or how much you play, then you are in the wrong place, because you're going to get mad at me. You're going to play bad. I'm going to get frustrated with you. But when all is said and done, our relationship is our relationship. And so it all goes back to those types of things, and how you feel about your players, and ultimately how they feel about you as the coach, and if they can trust you. So, it's like I told our guys today, I thought we had a really good practice today, much better than the one we had yesterday. And I said, every practice isn't going to be great. There's going to be ups and downs to this whole thing, and we're going to play well and we're going to not play well. So we start that messaging right away. Like it's happening right now during our practices. And so the messaging, I think, is so important. But that's a topic for maybe number 17 or number 18, whatever show we get to. I guess 15 would be next. So maybe we'll talk about some of those things at that time. But it's always great to be on with you guys. You guys do a great job, and I'm so appreciative of you guys and being a part of this mix.
It's always a blast, Rob. I mean, I think that just being able to toss around 3 topics and get your thoughts on it and be able to bounce ideas off of you, and it just hopefully everybody who's out there listening, whenever you get a chance to listen to Rob and the wisdom that he has and the amount of time that he spent as a very, very successful high school coach, the knowledge that he's able to share through these triple-double episodes has just been, I think, tremendous. And again, we're so thankful that you've been willing to be a part of this and share your knowledge with us as we go through. And again, you've got the perspective of a coach. Now you got the perspective of a parent. And I don't know, we're going to start calling you a podcaster at some point here. We keep doing enough of these. Keep doing enough of these. We're going to add another title to your
I love it.
To your resume. But nonetheless, Rob, can't thank you enough for jumping on for Triple Double number 14. We will be back in December with number 15. Jay, thanks for being on with us as well. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening. And we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoopheads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.